right, we will call to order the regular city council meeting for Monday, January 9th, 2023. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, could all remain standing for a moment of silence for former police chief Roland Kaiser, who was police chief from 2004 to 2011. He passed away on December 23rd. And if we could just take a moment to remember him. Thank you.
President Kim, if I
Yes.
may, remain standing. David Beck. David Beck.
Sorry, Dave Beck.
Yes.
A moment for Dave Beck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Clerk, please call the roll.
Edwards.
Here.
Hats here. Houston.
Here.
Kozak.
Councilmember Kozak is excused.
Panzera.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
President Keeler.
Here.
Mayor Kearns.
Here.
Director Dvorsky.
Here.
City Attorney Kuzan.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
All are present except Kozak.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the proceedings for December 5th and December 12th, 2022. Is there any discussion?
President Keeler?
Yes.
I noticed one correction.
Okay.
So I think it just is the top line of the December 5th minutes where it says November 7th, 2022 should be December 2nd, 2022.
Do you have the page number?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, page 1.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
No
you.
problem. But unless there are any other changes, I would move to approve with that edit.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Proceedings have been approved. Next, we have comments from visitors. We have some visitors. Thank you for coming this evening. I did not have any forms. So if you change your mind during the meeting, let us know. Otherwise, we will move on. Next, we have department head reports. Any preference on who goes first? Rock, paper, scissors. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
A couple of the big things we've been facing in the fire department, something big at the end of the year was that big weather, cold snap we had. I copied the mayor on an email to the crews when we came back after Christmas break. They had 68 runs in the last week of the year. 41 of the runs came from Christmas Eve to December 27th. It was all related to the cold snap. In those 3 days, they had three major fires, all outside, all with those cold wind chills, all flowing water. They had many, I think there was 13 actual water line breaks where in between all those runs, they were going and squeegeeing water, helping people clear out some of the water from their houses. We've got a couple thank you messages. The guys the crews just did really well. And the one thing I wanted to highlight was all of that happened and we had no injuries and no accidents, which was really fantastic. You know, seeing our crews perform, doing it safely, making the community happy, that's what we're here for. So that was something big that happened. We're about 1,000 dispatches up from last year, which is good. And we're going to civil service tomorrow to get our hiring process started. So we've got additional staff coming. That's going to help. It's going to make us even better. The crews are going to do another week of training in the Larson Middle School this week. You guys have all heard it's been a fabulous opportunity. We did do an interview with This Week News. We're going to feature some of the training that we did. Today the crews went back out and did some of the low frequency, high risk stuff that we don't get to do very often. Saving a firefighter in trouble, you know, what we do, the go right in where you risk a lot to save a lot. And then also kind of simulating the fire we had on First this summer where we had to pull 400 feet of hose. So we're taking advantage of the long hallways at the school and we're pulling lots of hose. Aubrey Hale and Chris Everett, our fire prevention officer today, put together a really cool social media piece that's coming out. In the school, in the old home ec room, they had a stove and they had a suppression hood. And it's the same suppression hood that our fire marshal enforces throughout our city for the smaller cooking kitchens. He gets a lot of pushback on these. Some people don't think they need them. They think they cook little small pots and it's not worth it. Well, we were able to simulate a real fire on that stove. We actually got the hood system to discharge. You'll see how fast it goes out, you'll see how efficient it goes out, and you'll see that there's no damage and it's confined to the pan. So it's just another really good thing that we're doing for our community, and then we're reinforcing it in the next couple weeks on social media. Things are going really good. Like I said, we're going to go civil service tomorrow and start that process. Had a lot of people asking about our position, so I'm hoping, it's not just talk. I hope we do get some good lateral candidates, and we'll keep you up to speed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the chief?
I'll ask a follow-up related to, if I may, the report, the significant structure fires on the 23rd, 24th, and 26th all clustered right around Christmas. I'm just curious what.
They were on the 24th, the 25th, and then the 27th. The one in the city was on Lincoln, and it was related to some old wiring and a ceiling fan overheated. But the owners went right to the base. They're older people too. They went right to the basement, turned off their main breaker, which confined it to that area in the ceiling. But unfortunately, it was up in the ceiling where the insulation was. You have to pull the ceiling fan, all that insulation out. It was a terrible mess, but it really, really could have been a lot worse. One of the interesting things with that fire, that was the coldest night. Our gauges on the engine, they're digital readout gauges, and we get spoiled with technology because they give you an LED readout of the gallons per minute, the pressure. Well, it got so cold, our gauges froze. Sutphen's had this problem across Central Ohio with these gauges, and when they freeze, you have to replace them. Well, we've trained for so long that you don't rely on those gauges, you can rely on the RPMs of the truck. So that's how you can judge how much pressure in water. Our crews just did really good, and we're able to get water, their training paid off, and cold weather didn't affect us. Just coolest.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you, Chief, and to all of your employees who did such a great job.
I will, thank you.
All right, next, Chief Starnes.
Good evening, everybody. So we were audited last month by the state of Ohio for our Ohio Collaborative, which is the set of law enforcement standards that are created by the Governor's Task Force on Law Enforcement. We passed that without any issues. We had 0 violations. Our report came back very well received, so there was no problems there. We did finish our community survey that we put out to the residents and to all of our visitors also that come here. We're still analyzing that report right now, so we don't have the final data for you tonight, but we hope to have that for you soon. And we just finished conducting a week-long training at the middle school. That's to be demolished here within the next week. It was going to be a little bit before I was back before you, so I wanted to just briefly recap that. This was training that was both public safety divisions with fire and police. The focus was to really streamline our deployment of resources, see how our personnel work together in a mass casualty and scenario-based training. I think that Chief Eisenacher would be happy with the results himself, but I was thrilled with how our agencies work together. We also had some federal partners there too that were assisting us with the training, and it went great. So just a couple people to think on that is Officer Hiles, Sergeant Lester, and Firefighter Grabo. Those three, the professionalism and the leadership that they showed, putting that training together, which took weeks to be able to safely execute that, was tremendous, and I couldn't have asked for anything more from those three. Chief Eisenacher, I want to thank you as well for loaning us Firefighter Grabo for the week to be able to help us with role playing, as well as Director Patterson loaned us several of his Parks and Rec employees as well to be role players for us in the building. And lastly, Mr. Andy Kolb and Jim Buffer with the school district, who gave us access to the building. So this was a partnership that stretched well beyond the government employees, and really appreciate everybody's cooperation there. Lastly, with the Grandview yard crimes that were going on last month, we're very confident that we have the 4 individuals that assaulted one of our officers, as well as the offense on the Amazon driver and all the packages that were stolen and all the stolen vehicles down there. So we expect to file, some of them have already been filed, but we expect to file numerous more criminal charges here in the coming days on all of those individuals. And kudos to both our patrol and Detective Bureau for working together with a lot of follow-ups on that. It took a long time, but the 4 suspects range in age from 15 to 19, and they are well known throughout Franklin County. So this was kind of a coordinated effort of a continuation of crime throughout the county. It wasn't just focused here on Grandview Heights. So, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Houston.
Thank you. Would you remind me, I missed it in the report, I apologize, your time frame for your deputy chief hire, or if you have a sense of that?
So my goal is by the end of the summer to have that person in place.
Okay, great.
Any further questions for the chief? Thank you very much. We
Thank you all.
appreciate you coming in tonight. You are both dismissed, but of course, you're welcome to stay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next we have council committee reports. Finance,
No report.
planning administration. We'll slow here, recreation services and public facilities,
No meeting, no report.
safety. Not here, economic development,
No report.
aggregation exploration. Director DeWorski.
We had, we've met twice already, and I know there's legislation on the agenda tonight. And after our 2 meetings, this has been a really good group. They're really engaged, they're really interested in me, and they're very participatory. I think out of our 2 meetings, first one lasted an hour and a half, the second one lasted an hour. And so we talk about things like the expertise that's out there. We talk about other communities that have come before us on this. We talked about the November election and what other communities did to promote the idea of aggregation. And I think we've pretty much realized that this is a topic that we need to be students on. And we need to learn more about and find the people that really know a lot about this subject, and see as this progresses and becomes more popular across the nation of if anyone is building a better mousetrap than was done before. And the nuances the committee talked about of learning about how often do you go out to bid, is there timing of the year and so forth. So the upshot of all of that is that the committee would be, if it's council's wishes, that we would suggest and recommend that we be able to continue meeting in 2023 and see where this goes.
Thank you. Next, we have council liaison reports, Grandview Library, member excused. School, congratulations to the school on the opening of the revamped Grandview Heights High School. It's beautiful, it's lovely, it's going to be such a great place for our students to learn, and very excited that they will be starting there tomorrow morning. Or no, they started here Thursday, today's Monday, sorry. Next, we have the chamber.
Yeah, there are a couple events this week. On Wednesdays, the Grandview Roundtable, that's at 4:30 at Bursa on Dublin Road. And then also, there's a Communities in Action luncheon on Thursday, and it sounds like our very own President Keeler will be one of the presenters. So that's going to be at 11:30 on Thursday.
Thank you. Planning Commission.
There was no planning commission meeting in December, and as far as I know, there's not one scheduled for January. There are no applications in place.
Thank you, Coda.
No report as well.
Mark C, January is our off month, so I will report back in February. Sustainable 2050.
Yes, there is a meeting coming up, and I was just searching my email to try to find the date, but it escapes me. So I will be attending the next meeting. I believe it's in March. Just don't have the date right in front of me. That's all.
Very good, thank you. Mayor's report, Mayor Kearns.
Thank you. We are feeling the loss of David Beck this week. He actually passed away somewhat unexpectedly after a short period of hospitalization. He was our prosecutor since 2005. He was a wonderful man for First Avenue. And the funeral service and calling hours are tomorrow morning in Lewis Center at Berlin Church starting at 9. Today's Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, today and every day. We certainly appreciate what these talented folks do and enjoy hearing from them in this meeting. It has been a wonderful week of training. We appreciate the school's partnership. Also coming in the next month will be the school's demolition later this month. Just a reminder to withhold income tax correctly to residents. And finally, I want to thank the fire department, who's left, but thank them too, even though they were in the middle of some pretty intensive work, taking time to speak to 2 news channels last week and doing really some nice interviews about hands-on, hands-only CPR and the importance of early intervention. And also just a reminder, we do have a CPR class that's offered to the public. I believe there's one coming up in January and it's on rec desk.
Thank you. Any questions for the mayor? Moving on, Director of Operations, Director Kowalski.
Start with some human resources matters. We've got, we're recruiting for 2 service department positions, maintenance workers on the sanitation side. Hope to have those filled shortly. On the street side, the crew did a great job with the streets as part of our storm and the severe cold we had. But as part of our ongoing efforts to improve operations, we did, however, discover opportunities for even better communication and coordination in some of our debriefing sessions after that event. So improved outcomes is not just about adding staff or adding equipment. It's about the leadership strategy with the team leaders, then with their crew, then with incorporating the administrative assistant as well as our 311 system. So if you were pleased with the efforts at our last storm, prepare to be impressed as we improve our processes even further on the next storm. We are also recruiting for a recreation programmer position. And then also on the building department report, I just wanted to highlight, I saw that we had done 3,001 inspections in 2022. And to do the math on that, and that's 12 per day if you go for a 250-day work year, 6 each half day. So it just shows the importance of being fully staffed in all of our departments because the work never stops. So really happy with the way things are going in the building and zoning department now. Special shout out for the service department staff and the parks maintenance staff for transitioning the space here at the center. I'll tell you, our staff, they've got some serious skills because we didn't have that much of a plan. We had a vision for it, and if you look out there now, I mean, it's really first rate. So I think that's gonna serve us well. And then, both of those departments are a shortage of staff in the service department. The parks maintenance staff really came through in helping out both outdoor activities and in this project. So I think what administration and the council should be most proud of is that there's no hesitation whatsoever in departments working together. I think that's one accomplishment that we've done. It's really the norm now. And you heard that with the police chief talking about how grateful he was with the fire department's help. And this is not something I've always seen in the public sector. I think it's just really truly special here in Grandview and needs not to be taken for granted. And with that, I will end by saying that next Monday, June 16th, is my 45-year anniversary in the public sector. January 16th. I was in the blizzard of 78, pulling a trailer across the turnpike from Cleveland to Madison. It took us 17 and a half hours to travel 500 miles. And we're behind the semi-trucks, just trying to follow in their treads so we don't fall off the road type of thing. And so it's just strange how some things you remember 45 years later. You know? What did I have for dinner? I don't know. I still remember this 45 years later. So, thank you.
45 down, 45 to go. We're happy.
Congratulations. Are there any questions for Director Jaworski? No. Thank you, and congratulations on your upcoming work anniversary. Director Miller, Finance Report.
We closed out the year on January 3rd. I added some additional reports for year end in my report. Income tax collections for the year ended up being down 5%, almost $900,000, which wasn't as bad as we thought it could be. So I was pretty happy with how we ended the year. The year-end fund cash balance, the year-end general fund cash balance was a little bit over $15 million. And remember, that's where we're taking some of the money for the project. So I've already transferred, because council approved it in December, I've already transferred $6 million out. So we are set to get moving on the project. There's a lot of additional reports in there, and you can just let me know if you have any questions. I think it just provides a little more background information on some of the income tax.
Are there any questions for Director Miller? Councilmember Smith?
In your report, things to look out for legislation. You mentioned the Data Transparency Act, something to look at, monitor with the Defense Authorization Act, and you didn't really elaborate, but you said that it could have an impact, fiscal impact. What exactly?
So the Financial Data Transparency Act was included in the National Defense Authorization Act. And what they're trying to do is make it so all governments are reporting the same way, or to kind of try to make it more consistent. So that means that they have to come up with some kind of structure, some kind of system for it. So they're saying in 4 years, the system will be put in place. I'm hoping that our software company will work on that and, set up whatever parameters to do it, but nobody's quite sure what it means. They're putting together some work groups, which will include GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association that we belong to. They'll be involved in it and just trying to come up with a way that's not going to be super burdensome for all the governments. But it's really hard to tell right now what all it will mean.
Are there any other questions? All right, thank you, Director Miller. Moving on, Director Colker, Planning and Community Development.
The other Department of Fun. A few highlights. Fairview will be starting construction soon. Underground utilities will go the whole length, starting soon. So look out for that fun. We did get formal notice, and I know we had said before that we were expecting to be awarded the OPWC funding for First Avenue, but we got the formal letter, so that's all in the can, and we'll start working on some additional planning and engagement soon. Schematic design is well on its way for the municipal building. We're going to start estimating preliminary concepts very soon, so we get a little bit more information going on that shortly. Have some meetings coming up on the next council meeting. Before the next council meeting at 6 o'clock on the 23rd, there'll be some initial information provided to the public. Also, there's a Parks and Facilities Advisory Board meeting tomorrow night where there'll be some preliminary conversations, and then if everything goes well, we may be at Planning Commission for some preliminary review as early as February. We're also in receipt of the RFP responses for the 3 CMs, so city staff are reviewing those responses, and interviews for CMs are next Wednesday morning. We should have hopefully a selection before too long. We also have a proposal from the city engineer for offsite improvements that will support that project, so that's also moving along. And in the meantime, our Parks and Rec project is also moving. There's a meeting on that on Wednesday for sort of second or third round of schematic preliminary work there as well. I may have mentioned this last time, but the preliminary, one preliminary takeaway so far from the planning process is that no additional parking is needed on site, so the park space will be able to be retained, all of that green space, no intervention in Wallace for parking. Rapid 5 is getting going, which is pretty cool. There's an initial round of meetings starting this month with all the municipalities around town who are impacted or adjacent to the different river corridors, and we'll be attending one of those meetings. And also ODOT is getting started on the North Knot unraveling to try to kind of straighten out Kinnear over across Herrick and Olentangy and 315 and that whole knot. So there's some preliminary planning that's formal planning that has started on that. There's a big team engaged working on it. The Economic Development Strategic Plan, a draft is in the can. We have some review that will be starting shortly on that, but its draft is finished, so just any kind of tweaks. Grandview Yard, the Devon, the building south, residential building south of the park will be starting. We have a meeting coming up soon with NRI to talk about the overall, and our city engineer talk about the overall sanitary and sewer capacity in the city and how that's sort of tracking. It's looking good in Grandview Yard, just FYI, but there's a meeting coming up on that. And then BMW has, I believe, moved in, at least they were supposed to have moved in by now. I did see some desks and lights and things on down at Grandview Crossing. And the other thing with Grandview Crossing is we're looking at the TIF for that area. It's got some unique considerations and really got kind of impacted by COVID. So there may be, as we look into it, some amendments that we might want to make to help make sure that the project is as successful as it wants to be. There's been no trigger on any of those TIF exemptions yet in Grandview. So there's still an opportunity to look and see if it's as well aligned as it should be given the kind of sidetrack that happened for that project. So that's all the stuff that we're looking at. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the director? Councilmember Houston.
The contents for the Parks Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow evening, and then the 6 p.m. meeting on January 23rd. Is there significant overlap, or are those pretty complementary?
Yeah, definitely overlap. Yeah.
Okay. Just trying to get a sense of my meeting.
Pretty much it's entire overlap.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Are there any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. Sounds like you were really bored the last month. Next we have Director Kazan, City Attorney report.
I submitted my report and would be happy to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions for the director? Moving on, old business item number 1.
Ordinance 2023-01, which is old ordinance 2022-11, an ordinance to authorize the city of Grandview Heights to establish an opt-out governmental electric aggregation program for residential and non-mercantile customers located within the incorporated areas of the city of Grandview Heights, to direct the Franklin County Board of Elections to submit the ballot question to the city's electors on the November 8th, 2022 ballot and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Director Dvorsky, you already spoke to this. Would any of the sponsors like to speak?
Yes, please.
Councilmember Houston.
Thank you. So I did some investigation into the spring ballot opportunity, and there's not really anything that we can be certain of. The constitutional, state constitutional change died in lame duck. The judicial races, there's potentially candidates who might challenge, but we wouldn't know until the same filing date when we would need to file. So with that and potential, having to cover all of those costs as a city, I think it would be prudent for us to table this until the first meeting in July, first meeting of the month in July, which I'm not sure if that date is July 3rd because of the holiday. But yeah, that is my recommendation. I think kind of talked to Director Dvorsky about this, and we're in alignment, and I think that's kind of the sense of where council body is as well. Gives us in the administration also a little bit more time to study and learn and gather information and hear from some guest speakers, hopefully in committee as well. So with that, unless there are questions or other discussion, I would move to table this legislation to date certain.
It's currently on the table.
Okay, so we need to move it off the table. I would move to take this off the table so that we may have a motion then to,
Putting it on the table when you table it.
to take it off the table and then put it back on the table.
We need to remove it from the table to act on it.
Okay, so there's a motion to remove it from the table.
Motion to take it off the table.
I'll second.
Motion and second, clerk, please call the roll.
Edwards?
Yes.
Hatsfatinos?
Yes.
Houston?
Yes.
Panzera?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
President Keeler?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-01, old 2022-11 has been removed from the table.
Thank you.
Now you can take.
Motion to table to date certain of July
The resolution currently says the 3rd.
3rd, July
The
3rd,
date resolution.
2023.
All right, that's a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second, clerk, please call the roll on tabling.
Hatsfatinos?
Yes.
Houston?
Yes.
Panzera?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
President Keeler?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-01, old 2022-11 has been tabled until date certain of July 3rd.
Thank you. Moving on, new business item number 1.
Resolution 01-2023, a resolution authorizing the disposal of city surplus personal property by internet auction or other permissible means.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. This is your legislation.
Yes, this is what, kind of housekeeping. We've done this in previous years. Director Miller, if you want to speak to this real quick.
Yeah, so we sell any property determined to be, we no longer need. If it has a little bit of value, we sell it on Gov Deals, and this is just authorizing the city to sell it on Gov Deals.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Resolution, is there a motion?
In light of it just being a housekeeping measure, I will move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
That's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Houston?
Yes.
Panzera?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Hatsfatinos?
Yes.
President Keeler?
Yes.
Resolution 01-2023 has been approved.
Thank you. Moving on, new business item number 2.
Resolution 02-2023, a resolution self-certifying 50,000 micro-purchase threshold for use of federal funds.
Thank you, council members. Smith or Director Miller, would you like to speak on this resolution?
This is another housekeeping item. This was new in 2022. The feds changed some of their requirements, so we now have to certify every year that we are going to follow the federal $50,000 micro purchase threshold, which means we don't have to bid out items purchased with federal funds that are less than $50,000.
Thank you. Any discussion? Any motion?
Again, since this is just a housekeeping measure, I would move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Panzera?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Edwards?
Yes.
Hatsfatinos?
Yes.
Houston?
Yes.
President Keeler?
Yes.
Resolution 02-2023 has been approved.
Thank you. New business item number 3.
Resolution 03-2023, a resolution approving various fiscal policies for the city of Grandview Heights.
Thank you. Again, Director Miller or Councilmembers?
Yes. This one isn't, it's kind of housekeeping, but the last time, these fiscal policies were originally adopted in spring of 2016. As we started looking at our new bond issuance, we determined that, number one, we need a post-issuance compliance policy, which is Exhibit E, which is a new piece. It was written by Bricker, and it just talks about making sure after we issue debt, we have certain obligations to report to the SEC, and it's just making sure that that's all written in a policy. The first 4 policies, we've just done some slight changes to wording. Nothing major has changed since 2016, but it was a good time for us to take a look at, you know, what was written then and see if it needed any updates. We had we had Baker Tilly look at them, we had Bricker look at them, and our investment advisor Meter looked at them as well. I thought maybe we would give you a chance, a first reading tonight. They don't have to be passed in any urgency. Brian Cooper from Baker Tilly will be at the next council meeting. So if there's questions about any of the policies, we can talk about them then when he's here.
Thank you. Is there any questions or discussion on this? All right, we'll record that as a first reading.
You decided finance.
Yes. Design into finance. Thank you. New business item number 4.
Ordinance 2023-02, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into an agreement for salaries and benefits with the Capital City Lodge Number 9, the Fraternal Order of the Police, and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you. I will leave this to Director Dvorsky and Mayor Kearns to speak on this legislation.
We will speak to it, it's in the packet, but we'll speak to it in exec session later. Leave council.
Thank you. We will record that as a first reading, and you have to sign that to safety. Moving on, new business item number 5.
Ordinance 2023-03, an ordinance to amend Chapter 113.01 of the codified ordinances of the City of Grandview Heights pertaining to the posting of ordinances.
Thank you. Director Dvorsky or Miller?
I can comment on it. So the clerk brought to my attention the fact that during COVID, there have been some restrictions imposed on our ability to post notices in the way that we had historically done them. And since that time, there's also been kind of a scaling back of a number of publications like newspapers that get delivered to people's doors. So we would like to sort of keep with the times and update our publication requirement so as not to have to be burdened by some of the delays that happen when you have to take out ads in the paper.
And there's no time requirement on
No.
this? All right, we will sign that to planning and administration, and we'll record that as a first reading. Next, new business item number 6.
Ordinance 2023-04, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the construction manager at risk for pre-construction services and the construction of both the city's new fire/EMS, police and administrative services facility, as well as the new Grandview Center at McKinley Field Park facility, declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mayor Kearns or Director Colfer, to speak on this.
This is a companion with the next piece of legislation, but it's essentially to accomplish the contracting with the CMAR. We have proposals and we would love to get started as soon as possible.
Thank you. Is there any timeline restrictions on this other than as soon as possible?
We won't have a selection until after the mid-month, so looking really for 3 readings. We'll get there's some red text in here while we insert the selected firm, things like that. So passage at the first meeting in February is what we were aiming for.
Thank you. We'll record that as first reading, and I'll sign that to recreational services and facilities. Moving on to business item number 7.
Ordinance 2023-05, an ordinance to make appropriations from the General Improvement Fund 350 for initial expenditures related to the construction of the city's new fire/EMS, police and administrative services facility, as well as the new Grandview Center at McKinley Field Park facility, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. This is accompanying legislation. Anything to add? All right, sign that to finance, and we'll record that as first reading for first reading. Next, we have the transfer liquor, or other business, transfer liquor permit. There's a request for TRO from C1C2D6 liquor permit at 1045 West First Avenue to a C1C2. This is the drive-through on First Avenue. Is there any objection? Is there a motion to not?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Been approved. Next, we have the Community Partners Grant Funding Program. This has not been used quite as much as we like. We want to make sure these funds are being used in programming that is either in Grandview Heights or benefits Grandview Heights if they're headquartered outside of our city limits. So I've made some changes to kind of broaden who's eligible to apply. I also made it more ADA accessible so that screen readers would be able to read it better. So it looks like there's a lot of changes. It's mostly just formatting, but really expanding it to anyone who not just is in Grandview Heights, but also operates within Grandview Heights. And because we're not using these funds, that folks would be able to nominate an organization to fund as well. Is there any questions, thoughts on the suggested changes? This is the funds, to remind everyone, that is funded by council. I believe we have, what, 5,000? Usually budgeted each year, and we want to make sure that that's being used for the purpose that we have. So unless there's any discussion, I would move to approve these changes.
President Keeler, I would, I certainly don't object to the program nor the review, but I would request perhaps that it be assigned to committee for a little further digestion. I've just seen it. That's all. I'm not trying to oppose in any way, shape, or form, but I think it would be helpful. But that's at your discretion.
I will remove my motion. And ask that everyone give it a good look over before our next meeting, and I will assign it to, we'll assign it to finance. All right, moving on, we have executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G4. It's for the collective bargaining to prepare for, conduct, or review negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions through their employment. Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
That's a motion and second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hatsaputinos.
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Council is moving into executive session at 7:44.
Thank you. I invite in Director Dvorsky, employee Audrey Hale, Director Kazan, Mayor Kearns, and Director Miller. For everyone else, this is a closed session, and so we would ask that you leave at this time, and we will close up shop as soon as we will get started once everyone is up. If anyone needs a break.